I am back with another Shit's True with my friend Scoot. Hey, Scoot. Now,
Hi.
this episode does definitely have a trigger warning for sexual assault. So if that is not your cup of tea, we'll see you next week. Okay? So, plenty of warning.
Yeah, no hard
Uh,
feelings.
yeah. So, this week's movie is Compliance, 2012. This movie came out. It was a thriller. It got great reviews. So I I'm gonna change up format here a little bit because usually I go bit by bit through the movie, and I just don't want to do that for this movie. It made
No.
me that uncomfortable. Is unnecessary.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna skim the movie and more talk about parts of it that really just fucking annoyed me about
Yeah.
it. So this movie is supposed to be a psychological thriller based on a true crime set in 2004. Uh, you start off the movie, intense music, a lot of scenery shots. Here's a
Yeah, and
car.
a
There's a
rude as hell delivery driver.
yes. And once people start this, I will say this director really loves his pointless shots of just
Yeah.
long drawn out scenery for like no reason at all, and the same intense music throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a
um,
weird choice. It was a weird
yeah.
choice.
So you come in to the you're clearly at a fast food restaurant. The waiter, the manager is in back taking in delivery, and you're kind of finding out that some mishap happened, and the guy delivering the food's like, "Did you even tell your manager?" And she's like, "I just wanted to deal with it." Kind of really setting it up that she's this power hungry manager, or at least like one of those people who like sees themselves as more powerful. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah, and she like didn't stick up for herself
no, but
at
like,
all.
but she wants to be that person. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so you know
it's
she's probably gonna take that out later on somebody.
well, it's like in like the presence of other people who have more power, she's gonna bow down.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side, when she's around people who have less power than her, she expects them to bow down
Oh, she
because now
literally did.
she's the one in power.
Yeah.
Like,
So they've already set up this character very clearly, in my opinion. They really
yep.
make this movie very like blatant.
Yeah, there was no
Like there's
subtlety.
yeah, there's almost no like meaning to anything. It's very just like this is this. Here you go. Like
Yeah, it's like
it's just
reading a book.
very
He
yeah,
said, she said,
yeah.
and that's it.
So you then go in, you're kind of getting more pointless, a lot of pointless shots, and it's almost like montage every 5 minutes. Like, but you're
Yeah.
seeing it's a busy restaurant. The teenagers are coming in, giggling. She's trying to start a meeting, and you're finding out that it's a busy Friday night. The food is messed up because the fridge got left open, so expect that to affect things. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
They also show her pretty soon after that like trying to come in on a conversation between two younger associates because this woman's clearly like in her 50s. She's an
Yeah.
older woman, and she's coming to talk to her assistant manager and finding out that she's about to be engaged. Like she knows her boyfriend talked to her father, so it's going to happen soon.
Right. She's like engaged to be engaged.
Yeah,
Like, that
and
conversation was so uncomfortable.
it's so uncomfortable. So then, but the way the assistant manager, I was like, "What the hell are you doing right now?" Starts talking about how the teenager, the main character Becky, you kind of find out you're more following her through this, is sexting and stuff and has a lot of dudes she's talking to, like just
Right.
dropping that in conversations. Like, what are
For
you
no
doing?
reason.
Yeah,
Like,
no reason. So once again, I was like very blatant on the director's part to label these people accordingly. So
right.
you can already see where things are going. The promiscuous teenage girl,
Right.
the no nonsense, I want to have power boss.
Right. He's setting them up for down the line to explain what's about to happen.
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely. So
is that
when once
really
it's about to
true? Who the
happen,
fuck knows?
yeah. So it really, I'm like, you can't call us a thriller. Mystery supposed to be involved in thrillers. You're literally giving us everything. Like,
Right.
there's no
Yeah.
mystery in this at all. I already know exactly where these characters are going,
Right.
you know? So then that's when pretty soon you get more like face shots and stuff. Pretty soon, you get the phone call. And this phone call happens. He says he's a detective and that this girl has stolen something. And he just describes she's blonde, she's young. And the manager's like, oh, you mean Becky?
Right, just gives
then,
him the name.
Yeah. So call back Becky. And this is where I'm going to start just really kind of, I'm going to the basics of it.
Right.
Because this is pretty much the whole movie at this point is
right.
The guy calls the manager calls him Becky. They immediately start going, we got to find what Becky stole. We got to find what Becky stole. He convinces the manager to do a strip search on the girl and watch over her, make her sit naked, take her clothes away. She needs to find babysitters. She first tries with the male coworker. He's like, this is sketch. I don't like it.
Kevin was the only real person in the whole fucking movie.
Only one.
Kevin was the only one. And he's like a teenager and he's sitting there going, this is weird and wrong. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and look at my naked friend because y'all say she stole some money. This doesn't make sense. He's the only person out of all of these adults.
Exactly. So because he won't then watch her, the fiance is called in. And he convinces the fiance to go to the worst possible places with a lot of sexual assault in there. And this movie doesn't shy away. You pretty much get to see it all, not even like kind of guessing what's happening. You might as well just put it on screen. Like,
right.
Even for long periods of time too, not even like just a quick shot. Like, I didn't necessarily want to describe it, but like there's a shot where it's kind of like, you know exactly what's happening. That one shot in a moment would have told us everything we needed to know, but they kept going.
Drug it out.
Giving us more shots from different angles. And it was just like, this is so unnecessary.
Yep.
And I hope this poor girl who the story's actually about never actually watched this fucking movie. So anyways, the fiance does terrible things to this poor girl, feels a lot of guilt, kind of hands the phone off to the late. So the manager lady's walking in too, like periodically, and the dude's having to throw back her towel or whatever's covering her. And the manager's lady, and she's like, please help me, please. And she's like, don't talk to me. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, the manager lady, she was so naive. And the guy, when he called, he set it up in a way where he said, we have the general manager on the other line. We have and he said his name. And the way that she fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, just made me so disgusted. Like, you were an adult, like a full-fledged, middle-aged adult, and you are so ready to assist the police with an investigation over whether this girl stole some money out of a purse. And then it gets turned into this whole big thing about, oh, now her brother. The guy, as I was listening to him, he reminded me of like street magician or like a a fake psychic. The way that they call out and they're like, I'm getting a bee. Like, is there somebody in the crowd with a bee? You know, maybe a grandmother. The way that they do that was exactly how he was playing this fully grown adult in order to get her to facilitate a sexual assault of a 19-year-old girl while he listened in on the phone. There is no amount, maybe I'm just too like millennial, but there is never a time in this earth where the police could come to me in any capacity and be like, we need you to assist with this, and be like, lock me up.
Yeah.
Lock me up. I'm not assisting you with shit.
I'll see you when you get here, sir, with your warrant.
With a warrant.
That's not how any of this works.
Yeah, there ain't no fucking way. But she was so naive. She was so naive, and he played her like a fiddle. And this poor girl was just completely assaulted by multiple people.
Yep.
Based off of a phone call from a detective. And the way, there was no reason that the director needed to show it the way that it did. No. It reminded me of how when 13 Reasons Why came out, and Selena Gomez worked with a bunch of different like mental health people, and the mental health people told her like, hey yo, you don't need to show certain things, and you don't need to like go too in depth on certain things. You just need to give the illusion of what's happening because it's really
Yeah.
harmful. And she was like, what if we show all of it?
Yeah.
That's the feeling that I got from this whole fucking movie of like some random dude being like, I have to, in order to get the most impact and for you to really understand what's happening, what this young girl is going through, we have to actually recreate it with the actress.
Yeah. And this is where I was talking about, like, I had so many mixed feelings. It took me a while to really suss it out. And I think I just finally figured out this movie wasn't a thriller. It wasn't making me feel intense.
Mm-mm.
The sexual assault scenes were so long and in depth, it made you feel so uncomfortable. There's
Right.
no way, I'm pretty sure the majority of women on earth could watch any of these scenes and not just feel inherently so uncomfortable and just almost traumatized yourself. Like,
Yeah, or get a fucking flashback. If you've
yeah,
ever been sexually assaulted
absolutely.
ever, watching this
Absolutely.
is like a
And
punch to the dick. Like,
oh yeah, you're just like, so that's why I'm like, this movie wasn't a good thriller because it gave you mystery or gave you that tense feeling. He just made it disgusting.
yeah,
And definitely, so I'm like, that's the emotion I felt through it. He gave me an emotion. It was there.
it's not a
Don't
good
think that's
one.
the emotion you want with your movies though. So the
No.
movie pretty quickly ends after this. He tries to get, so after the one guy's so ashamed of himself and runs out, he asks for another male, and the janitor happens to be there. And the janitor walks in. He's like, "What the hell is happening?
Right.
This is fucked. Absolutely not." He goes to the manager. He's like, "Are you fucked in the head? What are you talking about?" That
Right.
makes her go, "Am I fucked in the head?" And she calls her manager, who's supposedly
Yeah.
been fine the whole time. And this person's like, "I'm sick in bed. I don't know what you're talking about." Then immense guilt. Then he turns this whole thing into just panning again, people's close-ups, siren sounds. We get like a whole 4 minutes of just a dude's face driving. I'm just like,
Yeah.
why? Why was that scene so long? Not even audio in it. Like, is there's no reason. Like,
No.
and then you kind of, it pretty quickly goes to then the cop being like, we're gonna trace this to find the guy. We find out more restaurants have happened. A guy in Massachusetts is also investigating. Keep up with him. Find the guy. He's a telemarketer. And then that's kind of how they ended it. Like,
Yeah, there was no like follow up. Here's the thing, and this is a thing that drives me nuts even today with true crime, with shows and documentaries and stuff that are based off of real cases, is like they focus on the crime that occurred to the extent of they do not focus then on the impact that the crime had on the actual people. So like not only did they focus on the fact that this woman went and did all of these things to this young woman because of some illusion of working with the police. Not only did she do that, but she didn't even stop to think at all that this seems a little weird until another man came and told her, and
oh,
not the friend, not the other teenage boy,
oh
but a
no.
fully grown man in her own age bracket came and told her, hey yo, this is weird. That's when she decided to do it. And I understand it's based on the true story, and I know that the true story went pretty much the same way, but there's a way in storytelling for you to tell this story in a way that's still respectful, and in a way that is like explaining it so that people understand how fucked up it is without potentially traumatizing every woman who ever watches this movie. Because we all
Absolutely.
have stories like this. We all have
Yeah.
stories, maybe not to the extent, but we all have stories of being in weird fucking situations where
Yeah.
men have put us in weird fucking situations like this, and sometimes even other women, like in this story. But like you don't have to make a movie like this to get that across.
And this is how I knew without even looking it up. I'd already assumed this was definitely a male director.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I looked it up just to make sure. I was right. He was definitely a male director, but I was like, you can tell. You can tell this is a man who has no idea.
Never spoken.
Sexually assaulted. Like, just never even thought about it.
Never
because
spoken to a woman.
He made this movie from the eyes of the evil dude, of the perpetrator. So anyone watching this movie, if you even have any inclination to perv acts, or I guess even CNC people, but even then, this movie's gonna appeal to you. You're gonna be like, that's hot, you know, like.
Yeah,
and it grossed me out because these scenes almost did come from a place of, look at this hot chick, she's naked, you know, like.
Right. And
right?
She's getting touched and she doesn't want to be
like
touched.
It's a sexual
but it's so
scene,
thrilling.
Still somehow made it like I'm supposed to be turned on by this. And it's like,
right.
Ugh.
Yeah, why is this thrilling? Why is this supposed to be? How is this a thriller? This is one of those situations where I would legit like to go up to the director and be like, explain it to me.
Yeah.
Explain to me why this is considered a thriller. Explain to me why you needed these extended cuts of this girl being assaulted in order to get your point across. Explain it to me so that I can understand it, because there's no fucking way to explain it.
Yeah.
You cannot explain this in a way that is not gross.
It's no mystery, because he pretty immediately, once the phone calls start, little by little, he starts showing the perpetrator. But by the main parts of it, he's fully on the phone making noodles, smiling.
He's like, making a fucking sandwich.
He's a guy, you know who he is. So I know who's doing it. I know why they're doing it. Like, that's not a thriller. You just made you
made some kind of weird revenge porn.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, this was not, and you didn't even make the movie about like the case or like the
catching him
side of it. You know, like,
right. Like, you could have cut it in. You could have cut it in, and I was thinking about this while I was watching it, especially when I clicked like play on it and it was only like an hour long. I was like, weird, because I know this case. I remember when this case happened, because it was a huge fucking deal, because it's fucking weird that this guy called and was like getting these people to do these things pretending to be police. Like, that is wild. So I remember this happening. So when I clicked on it, what I was expecting was there to be like cuts between all the different places that this was happening to. Like, it would have been interesting if they would have like shown different cuts and shown different characters and different people in different areas all talking to the guy and him saying the same things, and how each of them were like reacting to it and how far each of them was going. And you could have very easily cut away from all this stupid shit that you didn't need in there, the extended sexual assault scenes. You could have cut away from that and went to the next people that this was happening to in a different situation.
Even had a really good story if you would have made like it not actually revolve around Becky, of like that whole thing, or even multiple scenes of this thing happening in multiple places, maybe your first 10 minutes setting it up. Right. And there's a pretty fascinating story here happening with the officers. If you would have just went down that road of like, so this is what happened, now here's the investigation.
Right. That would have been thrilling.
Finding the guy, you know, like,
yeah, showing the cops actually like looking for him and tracking him down like CSI style. Like
2 minutes.
Right. And suddenly the cops are there.
Yeah.
Suddenly they found him.
We're here. We got him. And it was just like no investigation. Like, there was no time into that part. All the time into the too much, you know?
Yeah. Or you could have done like a Law and Order thing. You could have shown him like arguing in court. Like, that would have been interesting and thrilling. But,
absolutely.
But none of it felt like an unfinished, very strange, like art house, like senior thesis project. It didn't feel like it was from like a fully fledged, real full-time director. Like a grown man made this. I didn't feel that.
Or like maybe he was forced to do it. Like, there's no passion behind this case. It's almost like someone was just like, this is probably gonna make a good movie, get this director, and he just kind of like, okay, we can do something. Like, I didn't feel any, like, he did not come to this case and go, I got ideas for this. I don't feel that.
Well, like, if he did,
passion behind it at all.
If he had passion for it, it was for the wrong parts.
Well, now we need to investigate him.
Yeah, like, what are you doing?
We need some investigation.
Are you on tour? Are you on what are you on? Like, what are you looking up?
Right?
Sir? Yeah, no. Yeah, where's Ashton Kutcher? Let's investigate this guy, because this is not, like, what the
I
fuck?
think this says a lot for sure. So, like I said, the actual true crime story of it is very shocking and infuriating and
Yeah.
just So for the movie part, that's pretty much the movie. How close it kept it to the crime? I give it a 9 out of 10. It kept it really
Yeah.
close to the crime. He pretty much shot for shot it. That's pretty much what happened. Um, movie wise, this movie is a 1 out of 10. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I never
Um,
watched this movie.
yeah, this was no. So the real story of what happened, April of 2004, happened at a McDonald's um, in Kentucky. It was 18-year-old Louise Ogburn, and I hope I don't butcher her name. Um, she had just freshly graduated from high school, um, and she had needed to get this job because her mom got sick and couldn't work anymore. So she was trying to bring money into the family. And in her interviews, she even, which let me go ahead and say this too. I read a couple different news articles from different local papers about the case, but Netflix actually had an amazing documentary on it with
Did they?
their actual interviews from the officers, her, other victims. So it's like, who better get the story from than their own mouths? So
Right.
that was
Right.
actually a really good series called Don't Answer the Phone. So
Oh, that's on my list.
it was really good.
See?
It was really good. So that's where a lot of this information comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she had even described of most of these calls, which is apparently in the hundreds. The number kept kind of changing depending on who was talking and what article you're reading. But
Mm-hmm.
the lowest number I had was 78 calls happened over a decade's time in 32 different states, to over hundreds of calls have been made 32 states, starting in 94, ending in 2004. So she had talked about how all these calls happened in really small rural towns
Right.
where obedience is taught really early. You
Yeah.
do what your elders say, no questions asked.
Yeah, especially
Authority,
police.
oh yeah,
Especially
authority
the
all the
police.
way. If it's teacher, your parent, cops, you just go with it, no
Mm-hmm.
questions asked. And they're kind of setting it up to why these small towns are so susceptible to this hoax. They call it a hoax.
Yeah, we
I think it's so
automatically,
much more than a hoax, but
yeah. Well, when you're from there, you are raised that way. We are taught, I'm from a very tiny town in a holler, basically. Like, we are taught growing up that the police are not only your friend, but they're there to protect you. So if a policeman asks you for something or asks you to do something or comply, you're supposed to do it. Of course, now, no, fuck that.
yeah,
Absolutely not. But that is 100% the way that we are taught when you're from a small town, that you were supposed to behave, that the police have the ultimate authority and they know what they're talking about, and they're much smarter than you, and they're asking you to do it for a reason, even if you don't know what that reason is.
yeah,
So that's 100% factual.
yeah. So, so Louise's case was, I don't want to say the last case. It was close to the last case. And
Mhm.
the bigger case, because she was one of the only victims that kind of took on the entire franchise. It happened at multiple franchise, but McDonald's had over a dozen
Mhm.
of were all just McDonald's employees. And
Mhm.
then you had like Wendy's, some Pizza Huts,
Mhm.
and some other just random restaurants. He just found
Mhm.
fast food, I guess, worked for him.
Yeah.
I guess he would just cold call until someone took the bait.
Well, it's mostly teenagers that are working
Oh
in
yeah,
fast food, except for during like the actual 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. But anytime you're going in there after standard working hours, 9 times out of 10, it's teenagers.
yeah,
So,
which also makes them more susceptible,
yep,
you know.
yep.
So so poor Luis gets called in, just like in the movie. Uh, the her manager's name was Donna, and she asked her to strip, took her clothes away, and then called in her husband. And this was all taped on security camera. So like in the movie, it makes it look like it's a much bigger room and only part of the room was being recorded. In reality, if you've ever worked fast food, managers have these really tiny offices.
Yeah.
And that was where it was. So you could see everything. This poor girl
Right.
is up against the wall, like naked, with the grown man sitting right there.
Right.
And everything was recorded. And it's one of the reasons why her case, because not only was she willing to stand up and say, I want justice, which is very brave, anyways, she had the tape to prove what happened that
Right.
some other people did not have. So the fiance gets called in. He spanks her for over 40 minutes. Like the lawyers were saying how you could see her turning red in the video because he was hitting her so hard.
Yeah, I will say that the movie didn't show like fully all the things that the man asked him to do.
Yeah.
Like it was the things that they were asked to do were not just search her and do a full-fledged like prison style strip search. Like he was asking for very specific, innately and inherently sexual things that these full-grown adults were saying, "Oh yeah, absolutely. Police want me to do this."
And
This
this is where
makes
I'm like,
sense to me.
So we know what happened with Louise. So the very first case was actually in 94 in North Dakota. Um, oh no, I think it was another. She was actually younger. I think she was 15.
Yeah.
There's a call with a 14-year-old.
Yep.
And she was a customer. It's because a guy called, told the manager someone in there had drugs and you need to go search, and just happened to describe a 14-year-old girl who ended up being assaulted by this manager.
That's what I'm saying. They're like a hypnotist, just calling out whatever. And if you call out enough shit, then there's gonna be somebody there that fits that description.
Oh yeah. So what you may be asking yourself now is, as we're saying, that you're thinking 68 or 78 or over 100 cases. You know, why is it a decade? Well, while these were happening, all from 94 on, um, French cops wouldn't be pressing any charges. Only 8 managers of the over 100 ever had charges even pressed. I'm pretty sure the guy from this very specific case was the only one that actually got jail time. It was only 5 years,
right,
which is infuriating in its own right.
Right.
But so what happened is most cops wouldn't press it, or DAs wouldn't chase down after it because they're like, this is just such a crazy thing. There's no way we could,
or they weren't
charge anybody. Yeah. Or the people would try to go after like the franchise, be like, okay, well, you didn't warn us, your manager did this. And they were actually putting out the idea of, you're just trying to extort us. You wanted that to happen to you. You're in cahoots with the caller guy. And I'm just like, how traumatizing. This one lady on the she was from Georgia and hers happened in 2002. And her manager did get fired and she tried to take it to court, but he didn't get any charges pressed or anything. Nothing happened for her because the judge even said, he said it in a really lot of big flowery words way, but it was pretty much, I hope you learned your lesson and next time you'll be smarter than to just do what you're told through a phone. But I'm like, but you couldn't put that thought process towards the people doing that to her?
Well, that's, I mean, are we surprised at all?
I'm not surprised. Like, and that's what makes me so
I
angry.
know. It is so like, it's ridiculous that even now people are like, well, why didn't you speak up at the time? Why would we? Why? I've been sexually assaulted and I would,
oh my God.
I'm never gonna tell anybody exactly who it was. I would never bring it to court because what is going to happen
for
me? Because of the situation that it happened in, people would look at me, and I have had other people look at me, in particular myself, and look at me and be like, oh, well, you put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
What did you think was going to happen? I definitely didn't think that I was going to be assaulted.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But it's like, what? And this is, again, this is like the late 90s, early 2000s. At this point, it really was the permeating theory of, if you find yourself in that situation, you had to have done something
Oh
to
yeah, you
get
put yourself
yourself
there.
there.
Absolutely. Victim blaming at its highest.
Yeah, at the total height. Like,
Oh yeah.
no, like,
It was
why?
all about what you did. And which, so poor Louise will take McDonald's. She sues them for like $200 million, saying you knew there was over 100 cases and you didn't warn anybody. You didn't send down a hoax is happening.
Right,
You've been sued multiple times and
right,
you never warned anybody.
right.
So, and they show the footage from the court of the lawyer, protecting McDonald's, being like, you didn't run out. When
Right.
you literally see in the video, she's naked and there's a giant man who's already beaten her standing between her and the
Yeah, where
door.
am I going to go?
And she's having to sit on stand and answer, well, why didn't you just, because there's another scene where, clip of the footage where Donna walks in and you can see her trying to hug Donna and like, but you can't tell if she's talking to her. And they're like, why didn't you just ask her for help right then and there? And she's like,
She
he
did
already
it
beat me.
first.
I was afraid. And I'm just
Where?
like, they're like, well, you were left in the room for 10 minutes. Why didn't you exit the room? And she's like sobbing. She's like, I didn't know I could. But I'm just like, what are you talking about? She's
Well,
a naked, beaten,
let's imagine.
18-year-old.
Let's imagine that she did leave the room, right?
Oh,
Again,
right.
she's naked, right? She's attractive. That's the reason why they wanted her to begin with. And she has already been beaten, right? So, and this is, again, in a very small town. This is a very small areas that we're talking about. It's a different culture there. And this
Mm-hmm.
is in, again, the late 90s, early 2000s. I can tell you exactly what would happen if she had ran out of there, okay? She's naked. She's probably extremely upset. She's crying. She's screaming. She's running through a fully packed McDonald's in the middle of like rush hour for McDonald's. She runs through, she gets outside, and then what? Where does she go once she gets outside? She's fully naked. And not
Yeah.
only that, but now everybody is staring and is like, hey, yo, that bitch is crazy. She just ran out. She was in McDonald's naked. Somebody is going to either know her or know her family or know her friends or know somebody that she knows, and they're going to recognize her. And then the phone tree is going to happen, which is what happens in rural communities. Phone tree is going to be picked up, and the next thing you know, the whole fucking town says, hey, yo, Becky is fucking crazy. She was in the middle of McDonald's naked the other
Yep.
day. Naked. And then maybe she gets to the cops. Maybe she gets to her home, her families. Maybe she sees somebody she knows and she gets them to help. They take her to the police, and the police go, you did what?
Right.
You did, okay, so you just took your clothes off for them? Are you on drugs? Does she have mental health problems? And then they start calling fucking adult protective services because she's obviously crazy. That's exactly what would happen if that happened in a small town and she decided to run out. How is that any better than just enduring it and getting through it and living
Yeah.
afterwards? Because she doesn't know. She doesn't know what's going to happen. She doesn't know if she walks out, maybe this really is the police, right? And she walks out, and the police in small towns are so fucking corrupt. I need you to understand this. They are so, I know firsthand experience. I grew up with friends in the police force, family friends, who were so fucking corrupt. Maybe she gets outside and it either continues with the police or she's fucking shot or killed because they don't want her talking about what's happening. So how is she supposed to leave this situation? At
Yeah.
what choice does she have that's a good choice? None of them. There's
Or
no perfect choice.
even worse, let's say she gets out into the middle of the restaurant. Help me, help me. Everyone's kind of staring like, whoa, what's
Yeah, they're
happening?
like, hey, yo.
The manager's gonna walk up and go, honey, what are you doing? And everyone's gonna let the manager and her fiance take this
Take her back
to be punished more. Like, I think people live in a la la land when they think that the human race actually help each other in that way.
No.
They
No.
9 times out of 10 don't. They just stare at you. You're
No,
lucky
the bystander. Yeah, bystander effect.
Let's
100%.
all remember what happened to Dahmer's victim who got out to the cops. And Dahmer was very easily able to be like, he's just drunk. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, he's fine.
And take him right back up.
I'm just going to drill in his head later. We're just gay. Gay people are weird. We're so weird.
Don't look at our age difference. Don't even. Okay. Like, happens all the time. And I am convinced that even if cops, even if you somehow don't want to put them under the corrupt file, I could put them under lazy, because 9 times out of 10, those fuckers are just trying to avoid paperwork. They 100%. Are not trying to open any fucking cases for anybody for any reason.
100%.
Like, so 100%. They are more than happy to be like, saw nothing, have a great day. Like,
yeah, like this seems like a domestic matter.
Yeah, you guys got this, right? And then the manager has to go, don't worry. And then,
yeah, we're on the phone right now.
She's right back to where she was and now being punished more. So it just makes me so angry, the victim blaming that has happened with this case. And honestly, I get even madder because I'm just like,
Can't you just get over it? And like, no, there is no getting over it. It lives inside of you forever.
Yeah.
You cannot get, you can find ways to cope with it and you can find ways to make your life okay, but you can never, ever, ever leave what happened to you totally behind and still be okay.
Yeah.
So they just, that's what's so frustrating about this case. And like, I know that lawyers are there to defend their clients. That's what they're getting paid to do. And everybody has the right to effective legal representation when charges are brought to them in court. But this idea that when it's a case like this, or even like murder cases, right? Where the only thing that the lawyer is doing is trying to poke holes and discredit and totally rip apart these victims that things have happened to.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you say to yourself, holy shit, I am harming other people with how I am choosing to defend this? If the only recourse you have, if the only way that you have to defend your person is to completely and utterly re-traumatize over and over and over and dismiss and re-victimize somebody who has been through the absolute worst moment of their entire life, at what point do you step back and say, maybe we shouldn't allow that?
Yeah.
Maybe that shouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be like a line somewhere.
Absolutely.
Of like the difference between defending your client and re-traumatizing a victim. And that's another reason why a lot of victims don't come forward. Because if you put me on a stand, I'm a strong person. I know what happened to me and I can describe it in detail. And it doesn't matter if you believe me or not. I know what happened. Put me on a stand where I have to defend that with a lawyer who is hell bent on ripping not only what happened to me, but also who I am as a person apart. I will have a fucking mental breakdown.
Well, yeah, this poor girl, to get the courage to sue McDonald's, she knew she had to.
Fucking good for her.
Requested all of her therapy notes. Like, they went and dug dirt anywhere they could dig dirt just to try to disgrace and defame her,
Right.
to make her, one, not want to do it, and if she was going to do it, they were just going to embarrass the shit out of her out of there.
Right.
She did, luckily, in this case, she won. Not the whole 200 mil, but she got 6 million out of it. But that was a win, because McDonald's definitely did drop the fucking ball here on
Right.
how this happened more than twice, and you didn't give
Right.
a warning.
Right.
You were sued 8 times, and you still tried to pull the "but we didn't know" card.
Yeah,
What
get
are
the
you
fuck
talking
out of
about?
here.
What the fuck? So like I said, unfortunately, with most of these cases, none of them saw any court time, any cop thing. The ones that did see court time, or at least with trying to sue the managers or the companies, got nothing. The difference with Luis's case also was she seemed to be the first one in 10 years to get a detective that gave a shit. And I will say this, while I do like the detective, seems very nice in the documentary and stuff, I think he did genuinely care. I mean, he even cried in it. I think he genuinely cares, but where it made me mad as a female is over 100 cases, and you care not because the case was fucked up, but because you knew that girl. She was his neighbor. He grew up with her father. He watched this little girl grow up. It took a man seeing her as his child to humanize this case enough for him to want to go after somebody.
That shit pisses me off.
Out of all these detectives, all these cops, DAs, just ignoring this shit, the only reason this one left the ground was because he knew her. That was the only fucking reason. The only reason he fought so hard for this case, which is admirable, don't get me wrong, but you have to see the fucked upness in that. Like
every time I hear somebody say, every time, because that's like a rallying cry to a lot of people, and it's a rallying cry for a reason, because typically it can take, particularly men, it can make them take a step back. It makes me so angry that the only way that you're willing to take a step back and look at women as people is be like, oh shit, that could be my mom, or that could be my sister, or that could be whoever. Like, you can't just look at us and be like, that's a human being.
Yeah. And
like, you have to have some
her. No, yeah. Nobody saw them as true cases, as horrendous as they are, until he was able to humanize it.
Until it was personal. Yeah, until it's personal.
It had to
they
become
don't
personal
care.
for him.
Yeah.
Which I guess, thank God, after a decade, it became personal for fucking somebody.
For somebody.
Like, yeah. So he starts trying to track down, he starts with the whole idea of, he was able to describe the girl, maybe because he was watching from a payphone across the street. So he starts like locally and kind of realizes, no, they're like a calling card was used. He was definitely using a payphone, and I don't think he was here. So he starts trying to track down the calling cards. In doing that, he finds out Panama City is where these cards are being purchased, but he can't get much further than that. So he starts, he said he just typed in Google, like the situation, and saw a bunch of different counties having it. So he just started calling these counties to see what they did in these situations, or did they get any leads or whatever.
Right.
He finally reaches one that's like, we didn't, but Massachusetts, they had 4 restaurants hit in one night, which made them start a little, which
like a database.
They said it was I loved, in one newspaper it said it was a task force, but in the documentary it was an officer. It was one detective.
Just one guy. That's one your whole task force.
Willing to take the task on.
That's what we're worth, ladies. We are worth one person.
One officer, but he did work his butt off. I'll give him that. He too was also, he said he harassed AT&T until he could not harass him. He called every fucking body and called them daily, because they first tried to tell him that you couldn't trace those cards, and he was like, you better trace it somehow. You gonna trace this card today. Like, right. And finally they were able to be like, okay, yes, we can trace the cards. They got him down to Panama City. He was able to get it to a Walmart, but unfortunately that Walmart's he was a time and date, he was like, send me your surveillance tapes. But unfortunately, this Walmart had one of those surveillance cameras. None were at the register, and they popped. So it'd be like you'd see the door, you'd see an aisle, you see the cat, something.
Gotcha.
And he's like,
Gotcha.
it was hours worth, and he had a headache, and he's like, and I don't know what the fuck to look for. So it was kind of like a dead end. Around this time is when Kentucky officer his name's Buddy Stump, calls him and is like, I got this case. Doesn't match your case. He's like, fuck yeah, send me your calling card. And Buddy's calling card was able to get them to a different Walmart who did record their registers, and they found the guy. Timestamp, buying a calling card, guy on camera, face. Okay. Mm-hmm. They took that face shot and went back to the other guy's tapes to see if they could find him walking into that Walmart, and they did. And in that one, he noticed the guy was wearing like these uniform pants with the gray stripe down side. He was like, that's a fucking officer, which is where the movie changed it. And I was like, I wonder why he changed it. This guy's a corrections officer, the one who really did it. But in the movie, they made him like a telemarketer, and I'm not really sure why they made that change.
It's probably for legal reasons. There's probably some kind of legal reasons. Like if the guy only got 5 years, I mean, you don't want to bring down any kind of.
Oh no, this is about to really piss you off. So they got the guy, they got him on video, 2 shots. And so they start going. So first he thought he was a cop. He's like, you're a cop. So I'm going to call this. He sends the photos to them, to the cops. And they're like, no, that's not our uniform. That's the correction officer's uniform. So he drives down to Panama City. He goes, there's 3 jails there. He hits the first one. They're like, no, we don't know that guy. He hits the second one. They're like, I know that guy. What was his name? Fucking Stewart. Yeah, Stewart. That's his last name. And they're like, he works here. He works on the swing shift. He's actually here right now. So the cops call him in, and this is where the guy's like, this is probably where I messed up. I should have waited to interview him. But he said Stewart walked in and was just like, and they were like, do you know why we're here? And he just kind of goes, did anyone get hurt? And I'm glad it's over. But then pretty quickly went to, but I don't know what you're talking about. I've never bought a calling card in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, so the guys are like, okay. And they leave, and they immediately go get a warrant to search this guy's place. In the place, they find calling cards. They find a shit ton of cop paraphernalia. Like, this guy's been trying to become an officer for a long time. He has posters, magazines, like all clearly obsessed with law enforcement, which kind of goes with the whole motive of pretending you're a cop. So we have calling cards in his house. We have him on video buying said calling cards. We have his coworkers identifying him as that's him in the video. Mm-hmm. He goes to court. Well, first he gets arrested. Okay, even worse. Panama City won't convict him of anything. They're like, no. Massachusetts is like, great, glad you found the guy. We will also not be pursuing charges. We don't think we could get him to stick. Kentucky was the only place that they could try to convict him.
Right.
They're the only ones willing to do it. So he goes to Kentucky with Buddy, and he gets a $100,000 bail, and he gets it. So he gets to be in 10%. Florida until 2006 is when his trial is. And he his lawyers did the defense of, one, he's too stupid. The person who did this is obviously intelligent. He's not intelligent. He was too stupid to pull this off. And 2, this just isn't enough evidence. And they did throw in that for some of these calls, he apparently did have airtight alibis because his wife said he definitely wasn't there. He was picking up the kids. So, and his family was on his side the whole time, never a doubt in their mind.
That drives me fucking nuts. Listen, I love my family. I have 3 siblings. I love my family. I'd help them hide a body. But it comes to a certain point where I'm like, hey, yo, you got to go down.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tell on you, but I'm not going to support you.
Yeah.
Either. So, like, if you for real, you doing this shit, then good fucking luck, because you do not have my support. I'm not putting money on your books.
No.
At all.
Absolutely not. Mm-mm. Absolutely not. So he goes to trial. He is found not guilty.
Of course.
Of course. And it made me so mad because his lawyer was in the documentary. He chose not to participate, but his lawyer was there. And the cameraman was like, or he didn't even get asked questions. He said, "Do I think he's innocent? I'll tell you what I do know. He's not guilty." And I was like, shut the fuck up.
Scumbag.
Do you know what the fuck you just said?
Bag.
Do you know what the fuck he did? Don't smile at this camera. I could not have worked on this because I would have jumped over.
No, I was
fucking
B
camera.
was B walked over. Were you talking to me or are you talking to the lawyer? I was smiling at B. B was making funny faces.
No, I was talking about
okay.
the lawyer. Like I
okay,
would
yeah.
over.
He got
if I was
paid.
interviewing him about these atrocities.
Yeah, I
and he just goes, I can tell you he's not guilty. Like, won my case. Fuck you.
He would have. So you know that there's been a couple of interviewers who interviewed Trump that made him really, really angry. Of interviewers that just did not let up. That would have been me. That would have been me. Like he would have left. He would have been like, I'm not doing this interview anymore. He would have left.
Yeah.
And like I would have got fired. I'd been like, you're supposed to get this interview and you didn't get this fucking interview. And like, listen, I get somebody else. Like, I would not have let up.
Yeah. So that unfortunately, since then, no calls have been made that we know of. Though, and I say that we know of because the companies were clearly already trying to cover this shit up the whole decade before the Louises hit the fan, you know? And I'm like, would anybody be talking about it? Or would police officers and companies just be kind of sweeping it under the rug anyways? What do we really know, you know?
Yeah. I just keep thinking about that guy's wife and like he had kids. Can you imagine
5 kids?
Can you imagine growing up and knowing that your dad possibly participated in this, possibly, like I say obviously he did it, but I say possibly because obviously if you're growing up in a household where the wife is so adamant that he didn't do it and he got found not guilty.
Those kids
like
kids running around today being like, bitches lied on my dad.
Yeah, like oh my god.
That's his
hopefully I mean hopefully out of 5 of them, like hopefully one of them was like like hopefully at least one was like, hey yo, I'm never talking to my father ever again.
Super fucking sketch. Like,
yeah, hopefully at least one of them did.
So
but
yeah,
like the whole thing, I can't imagine being married to someone, finding out they did this, and then just choosing to stand beside them.
I already told Jared. He's asked me before, like, if I got arrested. You on your own, bitch.
Like, well, that depends on what you were arrested for.
No.
Yeah, if you're well, I'd have to have the details. I'm a very detailed person. I wouldn't go either way. I'd be like, tell me your version, and then I'm gonna hear this one, and then we gonna decide. But if I feel like it's sketchy, if I feel like, hey yo, what? Like they're saying you did what exactly? No, I'm going home. I'm going to my mom. Like, mom, come pick me up because I ain't dealing with this shit at all.
Yeah, I would be like, goodbye. Like,
I'm calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, please come get me.
Oh yeah, we'll be done.
Yeah, we're not doing this.
And it makes me so mad about this case too, because that's pretty much where it ends. Unfortunately, he's found not guilty. Nothing's happened since. But this poor girl's life was ruined. Like, she was
so many women's life was ruined.
Oh yeah, and we just know hers the most. But like, she was supposed to go to college. She was set to go to college. She was set to start her life, and she did not. She never went to college. She's in therapy. She's on a lot of medications now, and it's just like, the only reason
She's
she
just
even
leaving
got
their life.
a hint of justice is because somebody was able to see her as a daughter.
Right.
But it happened so many times. And I do want to point out there were male victims too, a couple male victims,
Right.
but it's still just like these people saw no justice. It's so many of them, so many of them.
Well, that's
Walk
the way it is
around,
in this country.
yeah, just
Like
walk around feeling dumb. And like they
90
said that in the interview, she was like, it made me feel comforted. It's terrible to know it happened to so many people, but it made me feel comfort knowing I wasn't alone. I felt so stupid. And it was just like, you shouldn't have felt stupid. Like that the
right.
officers around you, that the place you worked for, your co everyone just made you feel like, well, okay. Like
Yeah, I can't even I I imagine that I would be just so angry.
yeah.
I don't think I would shut up is the thing. I don't know. I don't know if I would take it to my grave and never tell anyone that I was involved in that, or if I would never shut up about it. Like, I am going to make your life so uncomfortable. I'm going to say your name so often that it's going to be another, what's that kid's name? Brett, the swimmer guy. Brett, I can't remember what his last name is, but he was like the swimmer, the 30 seconds guy where his dad argued that it wasn't even worth it, of him getting convicted because it was only 30 seconds of action with the
Oh
drunk girl,
yeah.
Brett.
Yes.
I
You
would
only
turn
got
your,
3 months.
yeah, I would turn your name into one of that where you cannot say your name on the internet without somebody being like, oh, you mean the rapist? You mean that guy?
Yeah.
The guy that sexually assaulted all those women? I, and it's not even like this is something that doesn't happen regularly.
Oh yeah.
Like, we people victims of sexual assault are still not believed, and they're still, I mean, we have it happen all the time. Someone comes out and says, I was sexually assaulted by so and so, and somebody is always, usually a man, is always on the comments, little Twitter fingers being like, oh, but did you do X, Y, and Z? Like, we
Yep.
still have people asked in court, what were you wearing? And did you say no? Did you physically say, no, I don't want that? Did you do X? Did you do
Yeah.
this? Like, da, 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 da. We still are going through that. Like,
And it's still pretty much like expected of us to, I almost want to say like they expect us to die. You
right,
obviously didn't fight that hard because you're not dead. And so you
right,
obviously wanted it, like
right.
weren't
Like, yeah,
willing to
you
die
didn't,
in that moment. So you obviously liked it, right? Like,
right. You didn't physically fight back. Like, you didn't claw them. Like,
yeah.
you didn't, like, take the case that recent case of those girls that were killed in like the student housing on the college
Oh
campus.
yeah.
And there was, so the it was a couple of them, I think, in the same like dorm that were killed. And then there was one girl who, like, she came out of the room and like she didn't really see anything like too shocking from what I understand. She just thought, I think she saw like a random man in the apartment, which is like, is a college fucking campus.
Yeah.
No shit, you see like random people all the time, and she just like went back to bed. And now people are blaming her and saying, "Oh, well, you didn't think anything was weird. You didn't call the cops. Like, your roommates were just like dying in their rooms." Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. What is she
What are
supposed
we
to do?
supposed to do? Like, there's
Yeah.
no right answer in these equations for us. So like, what it just, sometimes I just get in my head, I'm like, nothing fucking matters. Nothing fucking matters. There's no right answer. There is nothing that we can do that is the right thing to do, because there's always going to be somebody behind a keyboard, behind a screen, that is going to be like, actually, you
Yeah.
should have done X, Y, and Z.
And what's even sadder is when people are like, did you get the people who are like, okay, so people online say things, but it's like, no, those people online are our officers. There are
Right.
lawyers. There are judges.
Right.
They say these because this is how they believe and how they live their lives, and that shit affects all of us.
Yeah, and that's how our justice system is set up.
Yeah.
Like our justice system is not set up to actually bring justice to people. And it's set up in such a way that it is so easy for a seasoned, charismatic, well-spoken lawyer to just turn everything around.
Oh, yeah.
Say the right combination of words and it's a get out of jail free card.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone knows that it's pretty much a show. It's a show you
It's a
put
show.
on jurors. And
Like,
what heartstrings can you tug on? What, like, that's why they tell
right.
you you have to dress a certain way to go, and you can't make facial expressions. Like, you cannot be yourself in court. You have to be this doll.
I would cause a fucking ruckus in court. It would be a disaster.
Honestly, bro.
I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm too fucking autistic. I'm so lost.
I already know I wouldn't be able to do it, and I know I'd be one of those people that just took it to my grave.
Like they would say something and I'd be like, I would like out loud be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh God. That sounds like a nightmare. Sounds like an actual nightmare.
If I actually ever even made it on the stand, the moment somebody tried to bring up like my sexual history or something like that, I don't know how I wouldn't be able to look at them and go, what does that have to do with anything, you pervert? Like,
I would just cry. I cry for every emotion. I would be sobbing on the stand if somebody put me on the stand
the whole time,
entire time.
And
I can't.
Like, but this case just made me feel so irate, and especially that he's
just existing. He's just living his life. He probably has grandkids.
Oh yeah, like on camera. That's what made me so mad. Oh, I forgot this line. So the lawyer is talking about how this documentary must be newer.
Yeah, it's newer. It's not been on my Netflix lineup for a long time. I forgot it was about these cases, but yeah, it's been on there for maybe a month.
Says, and this made me so angry because he was like, cops always think they have a slam dunk. Cops always take the side of the cops, but as we've learned with George Floyd and all, cops don't have it right. And I was like, don't you dare compare this man.
You're gonna compare this to George fucking Floyd?
He really did. He really tried to pull an ACAB on this situation where I'm like, yeah, your bitch is on video with the evidence. Like,
and you're comparing this to
a George Floyd incident.
To George Floyd, who was fucking murdered by the police. Get the fuck out of here. This is why, like,
I was like, wow. So
there's literally a special place in hell for certain lawyers.
And honestly, I want to say for that entire family.
Oh, like, yeah, that entire, like,
for your entire fucking family who bailed you out, who paid for this sleazy ass lawyer, all of y'all.
Oh, my mom would never. My mom would never. My dad be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh, yeah.
Never. I would be disowned so fast. And I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud that my family is totally willing to cut people off. Because we don't fucking play that.
My family's always been like, did you? It's almost like if I murdered somebody, they'd be like, well, why though?
Yeah, my dad probably asked me why. He'd probably be upset that I did it in a way that I didn't cover it up well enough. He'd probably be upset that I didn't find a pig farmer.
I would probably be the whole fucking time if I had to bury a body. But if I had good reason, my family would probably be like, okay. But you raped someone, especially a child, you're done. You're done.
Play that.
You're not part of the family anymore. Goodbye.
Yeah, we don't play that.
No. So yeah, that's this case. It's just infuriating. It made me mad that I don't remember this case at all. I was really out of it in 2004 apparently.
I remember it. Yeah. But I've always been super into true crime. So like,
yeah.
My mom thought
a news family either, so it's kind of like,
oh, well, we were, but my biological mom was convinced that if she allowed me to, before I got like my computer, like my laptop in my room, and I could do whatever I wanted, she would not allow me to purchase any kind of like true crime book about anything to do with true crime, not even just like murder and stuff, but even just like fucking con men and shit. She was convinced that if she allowed me to read anything about that, that I would turn into a serial killer. But I remember this. I remember this was when this happened, when I was in high school, and I remember it happening because I remember like, and it wasn't like, it didn't like really like blow up, but there was a very small community on Tumblr that was like a true crime community, like one of the first ones. And I remember reading about it there and being like, "Hey, yo," especially because I worked in pizza places, fast food pizza places since I was 15. And I just remember thinking like, yo, if somebody pulled me into the office and tried to do this to me, I think I would die. I think I would be murdered because I would fucking fight back. Like, there's no way you could be like, "Oh, take off your shit," and I'd be like, "Sure, no."
Yeah.
No, I couldn't.
I do think back at that age, I probably would have been a victim because I could not stand up for myself to save my life. These days, no. And especially,
I mean, this is not like blaming them or saying that like, oh, they should have fought back. I just know myself, and I would have been like, you were out of your. I'd have been on the phone to my stepdad and been like, "Hey, Dad, this is what they're asking me to do." I would have not been the perfect victim.
Yeah.
The perfect victim. That's just, I would not have been that person. No. So just wild.
That was this week's very depressing episode.
Yeah, we need to find something.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to judge it up next week for something a lot funner.
Well, yeah, something that's not gonna make me want to go down to Florida and murder some random guy.
Right, I'm definitely.
Or call a director and be like, "Hey, yo, what's your fucking problem, bro?
Yeah,
what is your problem?"
This subject always really grinds my gears because no justice is ever found for these poor people. It's like,
no, like, what is justice supposed to look like?
Yeah, you're more likely just to find a really good therapist because no one's gonna get convicted, and if they do, it's gonna be a joke of a time.
Like I said, and even if they do, like that doesn't.
Hundreds of cases. One guy got put on a sex registry. One guy, and that was the fiance. Right. And he only had to go to jail for 5 years.
Like Little League, you know. Even if this would have been like, even if justice would have been served, like that doesn't solve anything. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't like. Yeah, like, the people will be.
For those people, it doesn't solve. It wouldn't necessarily make me feel better to know my perpetrators in jail. I think it would make me feel better, but it wouldn't change my trauma. I'd still have to deal with that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it doesn't change anything.
It would change a societal precedent if we actually went after sex crimes for what they are, which is violent crimes, and they were actually treated as the felonies that they should be, and gone after just as hard as you would murder, because it's a violent crime that oftentimes leads to murder.
Right.
Very soon after, you're lucky if anyone actually survives it. As a society, if we actually treated those people the way they should be treated, which is under the fucking jail, it's like we probably wouldn't have so many people willing to fucking do it and be like, well, what's the problem? She was drunk and behind a garbage can, you know? Like,
I don't know. I think in a perfect world, I think the way that it would work is it would be victim led. So it would be like whatever is needed for the victim to actually feel whole. And if that includes jail time, then I think that that's appropriate. But I also know that like our jail system obviously does not work at all. So I don't know how to feel about being like, oh, well, lock all of them up, get them all out of society, because I know that that's also not the solution. So like I don't have a good answer for that. But it just sucks that there is no amount of justice that can be given to people that is going to in any way make them any better for what happened to them. There's no way to make up for it. There's nothing that you can do in our current society and the way that things are set up for it to actually have a long-term positive effect afterwards. There's always going to be that hole inside of you. And and for the people that do this, there's no deterrent.
No.
More jail time is not a deterrent. They're gonna do whatever they want to do anyway. So like, what do you like? That's what makes me so mad.
Just go over there.
Like that's what makes me so mad is that there's not actually a solution to any of this.
No, not in the current system. But I'm saying dream world system. I would say all violent offenders should just stay in jail. You don't get a second chance after a violent offense. And that would include murder and sexual assault. Go live on the island. I don't necessarily agree in killing them, but go live somewhere else, away from society, because you can't handle yourself without harming others. Like, go over there.
I can't imagine. That's why I've always been so interested in true crime, because I'm like, how the fuck does someone get there? How do you get to that point of harming another person so badly, so diabolically? That you're willing to do this. I don't understand.
Well, that's what I think is so on the psychology side of it is so interesting about this case is because you are going, obviously the caller is number one sicko, and like what the only jollies he was getting off was the power move of it all.
Right.
Just getting these people to do what he wanted to do.
Right.
But then you look at the manager level and you're like, yes, they were under the authority and all. But it's like the Milgram study where they had the people think they were shocking people and you could hear them screaming. It was actors, nobody was being hurt, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
In pain, and they just found like 65% of the human race, if someone
tells them to do
something, they're just gonna fucking do it.
Kept doing it.
If a boss is there to say kill them, they're probably gonna die. It's like all moral quandary goes as soon as we apparently have an authority figure to go, don't even worry about it, just do this evil thing. And we're just like, okay, like,
right, we just
which I find so disturbing and just kind of like, fuck.
Like, yeah, I think it's because we think differently too. Like me and you we don't necessarily like follow the crowd.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, definitely trying to raise my kids too. I think, please question authority.
Oh, absolutely. Firefly questions me all the fucking time. I have to. I
hate when he does it. I don't love it, but there's a part of me that's like, yes, ask the questions. I'm gonna find you this answer. And it may just come down to like, it's for your safety. Now do what I say. But like, yeah, I open the conversations. I'm very open to question me. Question why I told you to do this, because I want you to question, and your teachers may hate it, but I want you to question their asses too. Question everything. Do not blindly jump anywhere. Because that's how you end up like this. This is how you end up doing evil things just because